Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to the show. I'm your host, Zach Drew.
And I'm Andrew Bellers.
So glad to be with you here again this week. And we're called to do this. We're a couple of young guys. Well, you're still in your 20s.
Yeah.
I'm 30 now, and we love God. And we want to see his message preached around the world. People come to know him in a real and mighty way. And we love this country. And we believe that in God's sovereign will, he established this country for his glorification. And so, in a sense, we're kind of like Christian Paul Revere's, warning people of what's coming and that Jesus is coming soon. I actually enjoy looking out at all the Christian television and seeing like, hey, I think that, we might be the youngest guys and talking about these things.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that people like to support us as well. And so, if you want to support us, please do so. Just go to the website. And what we really need in these slow summer months is really, please, generous donations are awesome. But it's how we plan for the future. If we would not have been able to survive the last couple of months, if people hadn't clicked that button that says monthly recurring, because everybody else is on vacation.
Yeah.
And it was the monthly recurrings that did not forget because the system remembers for you. Please go to the website, and whenever you give, whether it's PayPal or Tithely, click that recurring button. Listen, if you are living in a liberal state like Andrew Bellers and I, being Illinois, why did all of my family have to, be born and raised in Illinois? That's why we're here. We felt called to come back here, and one of the biggest reasons, and it was a blessing that my family's here.
Yeah, but this is the California of the Midwest.
It is, yeah, exactly. Because I was talking to a friend, an attorney in California. And I said, listen, you don't have to be a prophet to know what's coming to Illinois.
Yeah.
You just got to be able to read. Because if you can read, go and find out what's happening, read the articles of what's happening in California, and we're 6 to 8 weeks behind that.
Yeah.
That's what it is. California, New York, and Illinois are the three most liberal states in the union. And COVID is back. My goodness. Masks are coming. Vaccine passports are coming. It's radical. It's like it's coming back all over again.
Yeah.
It's here and it's staying. It's being hijacked once again. But on today's program, we're going to be talking about different things. Mandatory vaccinations. 3 different topics. 1, it's unconstitutional. 2, they really don't work. And 3, when the government comes knocking, what do you say?
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you handle the situation? Because mandatory vaccines, they're in the news. Look at all of these headlines. Judge upholds COVID-19 vaccine mandate in victory for Indiana University. De Blasio to mandate vaccinations for New York City public hospital staff amid COVID uptick. Vaccine passports now coming to California as state moves to implement vaccine verification system. France making COVID pass mandatory for most leisure activities. Prepare for mandatory COVID vaccines in September, the Army tells commands. New Jersey hospital system fires 6 workers who failed to get vaccinated against coronavirus. College student denied admission to Dream School despite vaccine exemption for medical history. Biden will back local vaccine mandates. It's coming, people. It's coming. Mandatory vaccines. The COVID-19 pandemic has been manipulated into a social conditioning experiment conducted by the elites to test how quickly and easily we will surrender our rights. And it has been wildly successful, paving the way for the Great Reset, which has the goal of destroying capitalism around the world. We've discussed that, and ultimately ushering in a new global order. That's why all of these things it's biblical, it's prophetic. And all these things that are happening are a testament to that God's holy word is true and infallible. It has stood the test of time. And we know that if these things are true, then our coming King is returning very soon, and that is something to rejoice about. But in the world, they are pushing the line. They want to know what they can get away with, and they're going after our constitutional rights. And on today's show, I'm going to show you how the push for vaccine mandates is absolutely unconstitutional and what we can do to stand our ground. I'm going to end this intro segment with a graphic from Dr. Ron Paul. Not Rand Paul, which we need to be praying for Rand because, he's going after Fauci hardcore, and I love it.
That's right.
But this is Ron Paul. Put up that graphic on the screen. The rise of mandatory enforced vaccination legislation should send a chill up every single American spine. That government can force you to accept any kind of medicine and inject you against your will is totalitarianism at its worst. This egregious form of state power is metastasizing. That's a quote from Dr. Ron Paul. We're going to be talking about all of this and more right after this quick intro. Let's start off with the show with the constitutional aspect. The mandatory vaccine push, it's evil, okay? It's not only un-American, it's absolutely just totally and completely unconstitutional, and it's inhumane. Something like this has never happened before, and we're going to be seeing a lot of those events in our lifetime, Andrew. This has never happened before in America.
Yeah.
And we're going to be covering the whole time, I believe. I want to teach you something. This is really important. I want to teach you something regarding constitutional law that is incredibly important for you to understand. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen. Read along with me. This is so important. The constitutional law regarding states' use of police powers to protect public health and safety is well established. Any infringement by government on a fundamental right is subject to strict scrutiny, which chiefly incorporates two concepts: that in such cases, the government's interest must be compelling or necessary, and it must be accomplished by the least restrictive means. So, for them to mandate vaccines through the use of police powers to protect public health and safety, it has to be just lasered in on in such such scrutiny, with such detail. It has to be compelling and it has to be necessary for them to overreach such types of power. That's essentially martial law.
Yeah.
And it has to be by the least restrictive means. So here's the thing. So under this standard, the court presumes the policy to be invalid unless the government can demonstrate a compelling interest to justify the policy. So this is how it's constitutional. To override such clear boundaries, the only way they can still be operating within their constitutional right to go so far as to go door to door and force people to take vaccines through police type of force, which the government can do if they can develop such a compelling and necessary example.
Yeah.
This test applies even when the government has legitimate purpose in adopting the particular law. All right. With that being said, I need to throw out this disclaimer, because whether you are pro-vax or anti-vax, it does not matter at all. Even if these vaccines, the COVID-19 vaccines, were totally safe and totally effective, which I do not believe they are. But even if you are of the camp that they are totally safe, totally effective, to do what I am talking about doing would still be unconstitutional. It would be unconstitutional to mandate that people would take it for something like COVID-19. You cannot create a compelling state interest. You cannot argue it in any such fashion that doing this would be necessary and constitutional. Now, horrible pandemics worthy of it being compelling? Sure, we have had those in the past. For example, maybe like Ebola, right? With a 90% death rate. You know, if that was absolutely sweeping through the United States, could I say, you know what? Maybe they should take police for this would be absolutely compelling. 90% death rate. My gosh, with 300 million Americans, 270 million of them gone?
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, I would say that's pretty compelling.
Yeah.
Right? Ebola? Sure. Yeah, I can see it. Spanish flu of 1918? Sure. I could see it. A quarter of the world was infected with the great influenza, the Spanish flu of 1918. A quarter of the world, now remember the population was very, very much smaller, the global population. And over 100 million people died in 1918 from that. So could you constrain compelling state necessary? Sure, constitutionally, I can see it. Yeah. The bubonic plague. Right? I mean, that's a bubonic plague.
Yeah.
Talk about the pestilence that literally devastated Europe and Asia in the 14th century. It literally killed as many as 125 million people globally. Oh, so 25 million more than the 1918 influenza. Well, in the 14th century, the global population was 500 million. So it literally, not getting close to, or not, this is not sensational, this is not an exaggeration, it literally killed 25% of all of the world. So yeah, you know what, I could see a compelling state interest. I could see it being necessary for the use of police powers to protect public health and safety. Yeah, I think that would pass the test of even the most strictest scrutiny. Yes, I think so. But not for COVID. The COVID death rate, 0 to 19, 0.003 fatality, or 99.997 survivability. 20 to 49, 0.02 fatality, or 99.98 survivability. 50 to 59, 0.5% fatality, or 99.5% survivability. And even if you're 70 plus, it's still 6.4%. Ebola, 90%. 6.4% fatality, or 94.6 survivability, right? Get your vaccine, people. People are literally out there dying by the 0.001s.
Yeah.
So will they force it? I just built a case to explain to you how Joe Biden is saying that they want to send government workers. Other counties and other states are already sending county-approved workers, door to door. But Joe Biden is talking about wanting to send government appointees to your door and wanting to vaccinate you. And I just clearly showed you how that is absolutely unconstitutional. You cannot do that. It does not pass the tests. So will they still do it? Likely. Why do I say that? Because look at what the states have already done to so many of us already in the last year without creating a compelling argument. There is no question that restricting travel, restricting speech, assembly, whether it be at your church or a coffee shop, all of those impact a fundamental constitutional liberty, yet they did every single one. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
And how exactly Andrew, how exactly effective are the vaccines?
Well, I'm not sure because, some places, I think in Canada, they just said that 96% of the cases are people who are unvaccinated. But, I saw a couple stories in the news this week that really made me think otherwise. One of them was, here's the article, vaccinated Pelosi aide, White House official who welcomed fugitive Texas Democrats test positive for COVID. So everyone's probably been following this story because it's just kind of ridiculous. But there were six, there was a group of Texas Democrats who fled Texas because they didn't want to vote on policy that would have secured the election in Texas. And the White House just welcomed them with open arms for skirting their constitutional responsibility. But what's interesting is that 6 of them who were vaccinated contracted COVID. And not only that...
Wait, hold on. You misspoke. You were supposed to say 6 that were unvaccinated contracted COVID.
No, 6 that were...
That's impossible. They got the vaccine.
Yeah, so 6 that were vaccinated, they got COVID. And not only that, but they spread it to 2 other people, a staff member for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and a White House official, both tested positive for COVID-19 after both helping to usher a delegation of Democratic Texas lawmakers around the Capitol. And then here's the the PR White House statement. We know that there will be breakthrough cases. But as this instance shows, cases in vaccinated individuals are typically mild. That's not the standard that I want for vaccination. My standard is that it doesn't exist.
But think about that. They're saying if you take the vaccine,
you can still get it.
You can still get it, but we're seeing that the conditions are mild.
Yeah.
The conditions are mild unless you are 70 or older.
That's right.
The conditions are mild for almost everyone already.
Yeah.
So they could have said the same thing.
Last fall, Fauci said that 45%, that's like half of people who contract it, are going to be completely asymptomatic. They're not going to show any symptoms at all. Yeah, exactly. Like you said, for most of us, COVID is going to be mild. But here's the article that really I was just like, I can't believe I read this. And I can't believe people aren't reacting to this the way that I'm reacting. So this was the headline, 60% of people being admitted to UK hospitals are unvaccinated.
Well, darn those unvaccinated people.
Yeah. Well, and the reason why this was news was because Britain's chief scientific advisor, Patrick Vallance, said 60% of people being admitted to the hospital with COVID-19 are unvaccinated. And he was saying that to correct an earlier statement that he made, where he said at a news conference with Prime Minister Boris Johnson that 60% of people being admitted to the hospital have had 2 doses of the vaccine. So everyone was running with that story because that's huge news. 60% of the people who are admitted to the hospital with COVID are vaccinated. And he's like, oh, guys, it's okay. No, I'm so sorry. It's the flip of that. So no, 60% are not vaccinated. And then it's like, oh, okay, he corrected it.
So now I know where you're going. I want to encourage the audience right now. If you have your thinking cap, put it on, and let's use our critical thinking abilities that God gave us. He gave us a noggin with some squishy matter inside called a brain. Yeah. We need to use it. So if the article is saying 60% of people being admitted into the UK hospitals are unvaccinated, then Andrew, what would that mean?
Well, 60% of 100, that leaves 40%. So 40% of people, and it's not just people who are...
40% are vaxxed.
Yes, are vaccinated. And it's not just 40% are contracting COVID. We're talking about people being admitted to the hospital. We're not talking about, like it said earlier, there's going to be breakthrough cases, but they're not going to be, serious. We're talking about people who are admitted to the hospital. These are serious cases of COVID among people who are double vaccinated. And I just read that and I'm like, what am I supposed to believe?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Listen, we only have about 8 minutes of time left. So I'm going to say this next part. We'll skip the next article and then move to what do you do when the government is knocking at your door? So first, I want to say that we need to fight this, right? I had a great uncle that, and this is just my personal story, my personal experience, which is always great because you can't argue with it. Because it happened to me. You can't say, well, that can't happen. Well, it did. It happened to me. So you can't argue with my personal experience, right? And I'm arguing like a liberal. So I had a great uncle that was very scared of COVID. He had underlying conditions. And so he stayed home all the time. And did not want to contract the virus. So did all the safe precautions to avoid it. So that because of his age, as soon as the vaccine was ready, he was able to go. So he took all the precautions, got in his car, went there. They just gave him the shot, and he was able to literally just go right back home, right? There's nowhere for him to get it. Took all the precautions. He passed away within 1 week.
Yeah. From
COVID-19. And we are absolutely convinced that he did not have the immune system to fight the instilling of COVID-19 within his blood system. I had a friend message me this week telling me that her son took it and immediately developed narcolepsy. It's kind of like the after effects of COVID-19 are so wide in variance, similar to the effects of COVID-19 while you have it. Some will have the weirdest different effects from it, and the vaccines afterwards are very similar. There's been other things that people have reported.
Lots of cases of Bell's palsy, Guillain-Barré, blood clots, strokes, full body paralysis. There was one lady who said that she was paralyzed from the neck down. Doctor said, "We don't know what's going on. Basically, prepare to live the rest of your life as a crippled person, basically."
Unbelievable. And yet they're shoving the vaccine down our throats. Obviously not effective, but yet the military is considering mandating the vaccine as early as September, when only about 20 U.S. service members have even died from COVID. Here's another article. It says, here's the article. Prepare for mandatory COVID vaccines in September. Army tells commands. And, children are being encouraged to get the shot when so few have ever even fallen ill or died from COVID. Mm-hmm. And listen, I'm telling you right now that it's coming to your home. It's coming. They're going to knock on your door. I'm going to read this quick article, and I'm going to go to what do you do when they knock on your door. After the Biden regime failed to reach the July 4th vaccination goals set forth by the globalists, Biden announced a new plan to send government workers to homes of the unvaccinated. Now we need to go communities by community, neighborhood by neighborhood. Go ahead and listen to him say it. He absolutely butchered his script, by the way. But here's our president.
Now we need to go to community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, and oftentimes door to door, literally knocking on doors to get help to the remaining people protected from the virus.
Yes, and so the goal is to coerce, bribe, and intimidate every man, woman, and child to submit their mind to false authority so more people will relinquish their rights and give up their human dignity to a global genetic experiment that has turned out to be destructive and deadly. The principles of informed consent and medical privacy are under assault like never before, as governments continue to practice medicine illegally, deceiving the public with medical fraud. We're not going to get into this article here, but there was a big article from the Nature Journal that talked about how they are now blaming the Russians for the anti-vax aggression. And they're also blaming
it's always the Russians.
Racism for the anti-vax aggression. So, we just had to stick critical race theory in there too. If you're not for the vax, then you're racist.
It must be for the same reasons, people voted for Donald Trump, the Russians and racism.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. You're not, what? You don't believe in climate change? Well, don't you know that climate change disproportionately affects pregnant African-American women?
You're racist?
Yeah, you're racist? I just don't believe in the science. You're racist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? It's like, I just don't believe in the science behind the vaccine yet. I feel like we're the guinea pigs. I mean, I'm not necessarily anti every single vaccine that's ever existed. I mean, polio was a real thing. I'm not comfortable taking this one. You're racist, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what it is. You're a racist now if you are anti-COVID-19 vaccine, because you gotta put critical race theory in absolutely everything.
Yeah, that's right.
If you are not for vaccines, then you are a part of the oppressive class, and you must be dealt with. If you don't believe in climate change, you're a part of the oppressive class, and you must be dealt with. That's what's taking place. Let's go on. If you are among the millions who fear the vaccine for this virus more than the virus, which is your right, what is the best way to deal with a federal agent who arrives at your door trying to persuade you otherwise? These are just some tips, advice, some wisdom, things to do. We'll put these on the screen. First thing to keep in mind is that they are there to collect information about you. You are under no obligation to answer any of their questions. Place a no trespassing sign at your door. Tell them to leave your property. At that point, they are trespassing. Here's a tip. It is a waste of time trying to convince them of why you don't want the vaccine. Really, you'll look silly. Yeah. So just save your breath. Save your breath. Under the First Amendment, you don't have to speak to government officials. You have a right against unreasonable searches and seizures under the Fourth Amendment, and the right to remain silent under the Fifth Amendment. If you feel so inclined, immediately call the local police and report a trespassing on your property. If you own property and these officials tell you that you must answer their questions, pay attention, because that is simply not true. And 8, record it. You have the right to record through audio, video, and photographic recording of any government agent and assignee on your property, either with or without consent of that agent or assignee. I know Alyssa and I, we don't have to have our iPhones. We have security cameras at every single point of entrance into our home, constantly recording. So don't come to my home, because we've got guns too. All right?
Yeah.
Listen, we are out of time of today's show. I'm just going to run through, not even get into these articles. I just want to let you kind of know what's going on. Breaking news. Schools can now ban coaches from taking a knee to pray, says federal court. So they can take a knee during the national anthem, but they can't take a knee to pray. Here's another article. New pregnant man emoji set to be released to smartphones in September. See, I was hoping when I saw that emoji, that was just the buffet emoji, right? Man, yeah, I just got the buffet, and I'll tell you what, roll me out of here. No, it is the pregnant man emoji. And, they feel free to put that there, but I recommend that if they go forth with creating this pregnant man emoji, then it needs to go with the other emojis like the dragons, the fairies, the mermaids, the zombies, and the vampires, because it needs to be put in the category of other things that also don't exist. Yeah. And last article. This is the worst inflation since the 1970s, and the stage is being set for the total collapse of the U.S. economy. We'll leave you on that one. It's time to prepare. If you have the ability to have physical assets, to liquefy something. I'm not a financial advisor, but I would recommend, because I think that in the next 3 to 5 years, we will see hyperinflation that could even lead to, or inflation that could even lead to hyperinflation, which is just a horrible thing. There's nothing that should not excite anybody. We are totally out of time for today. Remember, all these events, they point to that the Word of God is true. It's a testament that it is true.
Yeah.
It recorded these events before they happened. And if that's true, and it is, that means that everything is true, that you can trust it. Jesus is coming soon. You need to be ready.